My younger self probably would have been well darn deserved to know this, but I was too dang stubborn to know or acknowledge that this was a thing. Potentially could have saved a shit ton of heartache, made me a lot more money, shortened some learning curves.
Do you have a fear of success? In my work with businesses and successful people of many stages, I began to notice that successful people know what success looks and feels like. Successful people know what they have been willing to give up so far for their success. Yet they have a fear of doing it again because they know even if they consider themselves risk takers, the work that will have to go into a potential new journey to reach their level of success and beyond again may be more than they are willing to handle at any moment. This is what has led me to develop the series Fear of Success.
My work with men helps them discover the mirror is their biggest competition. And the old me can't make decisions based on my old success journey. You never walk through the same river twice. Personally, I had this clarity when I started doing CrossFit. I was in my 50s when I began. The competition wasn't the 28-year-old in the gym. It wasn't the former Ironman. It was to be better than the man in the mirror the day before. It was about showing up, about putting in the effort, and it was about the journey. It was not about the destination. Often we make the mistake of destination addiction, thinking things will be different or better when. It is not about the destination. It is all about the journey. What affects us in our personal lives often isn't a problem at work. We make work a refuge. What affects us at work might not be a problem in our personal lives. But problems in either of these areas can bleed into the other. Very typically, I work with men who are incredibly successful, crush it in every aspect of their life until they walk through the door at home. Throughout this series, we will address some of the underlying issues men and women don't realize are a common thread between work and home. It isn't always comfortable. This work is uncomfortable. It is not uncommon for me to have a man tear up during coaching sessions. This work is hard and necessary for everyone, even the most successful.
Fear of success is different from fear of failure. Fear of failure is that you won't succeed. Fear of success is what you traded in order to have success. It's fear of an unknown path. Those that fear success embrace failure.
Creating connection in this journey crosses paths in our lives that, if we don't address in business, can affect our personal lives and vice versa. I know personally my greatest assets are the connection and relationships I have with other brothers and women. As coaches, we are on a journey of discovery just like our clients, and this series will hopefully help you down a path of discovery in your lives. I'm Dennis Collins, owner and founder of Man of Legacy and co-founder of Mentoring Men, an online men's community.
I'm Kat Fry, owner and founder of Oxygen Coaching Group. This 4-part series is broken into energy, business, fear, and a live session. Each session can be listened to in small pieces or all together. As coaches, we look forward to hearing how this series helps you along your success path. Welcome to the Fear of Success series.
All right, we're excited to get this series started. Please, to my community, take a warm welcome to my friend Dennis Collins, and we are going to start this series on the fear of success with our energy session. So you'll be able to watch this session in 4 nice long videos that we'll prepare, or segments if that's how you're joining us today. So Dennis, let's get started. Tell me, why is it important to kick off a series like a fear of success with energy? What do you think?
I think it is one of the most underrated things when it comes to people, the masculine, the feminine. The reality is, and I would have thought myself a woo-woo fool to say this in my 20s, but we can feel people's energy. And everyone knows when the boss is in a horrible mood when they walk into the room. You can tell. And it allows us to be more effective with the people we work with and the people we love. And to be able to understand somebody is feeling off or that you're feeling off, and to be able to address that, to me, is very powerful. And I have a personal belief that Eeyores need to be removed from your life. The woe is me, that negative person that would complain if they won the lottery about the taxes they had to pay. And I have over the years removed a half a dozen people like that from my life because they don't add anything to it. They just bring everything down. And it truly is an energy thing. I've been in the past, I'm retiring from it. I've been a part-time entertainer for years. It's all about the energy you bring. You can't be mopey if you're an entertainer of children. And I'm a balloon artist, so I show up with, the happy energy because I'm getting to entertain kids and I'm making balloons and I'm making smiles. And I show up that way in all of my life. I'm very aware of my energy because it impacts others. If I show up down, I'm going to bring my partner down, and if I'm working with somebody, I don't want to show up to a coaching session, like all the Philadelphia fans are right now.
Oh, shots fired, shots fired. That's interesting when we talk about how you show up really in any situation. But I think for a lot of successful people, in my experience, those are always the problem solvers. And they have this perspective that once a problem solver, always a problem solver. And they kind of have this upper hand, which is a very masculine type of energy, but it's also a high energy and it's a giver's energy. One that is bound to take the next step. It's like that driver personality. Interestingly, in my work with different types of personalities and people, those all get intermixed, right? Driver personality, A-type personality, entrepreneur, masculine, and there's really a lot of different pieces. But what we're talking about here is a very energetic piece. And I think you hit it there with that Eeyore mindset. It's nobody wants the Debbie Downer. In fact,
No.
That's what holds us back. And it's almost like judgment.
Well, and I don't have it now because it's later in the day. My coffee mug is a Tigger coffee mug. So you have Tigger and Eeyore, the two extremes. If you had to pick one, then Tigger can be a little annoying at times, especially, but that nobody wants Debbie Downer. And you're right about the problem solvers. They bring a certain energy, but they also don't look at it as a problem. They look at it as an opportunity and they're going to fix something. And part of that is their energy and their attitude about it, as opposed to Debbie Downer's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Everything is, it's just not the way it is when you got the problem solvers. They're like, all right, what do we need to do to fix this? And they solicit input. They bring the best out of the other people on the team, because it isn't about woe is me. It's okay. What do we need to do? How do we fix this?
I tell people a lot in my work, you won't ever face judgment for somebody who's further down the path than you are. And a lot of times judgment can come from even people who love you. It can come from, your family or your friends or someone who you think cares about you, but is more than happy to judge you, especially if you are exceeding something that maybe your family has never done before, or maybe in the case of your work, you're the first one in your family to get a divorce. in my work, you're the first one in your family to own a business and not be officially gainfully employed by someone else. And that judgment comes from a place that they think is good, but people who judge you, they will attempt to kind of hack at that mentality that they want you to kind of feel bad about yourself. But in reality, you should not be taking judgment from those people. You should only be taking criticism and concepts and ideas from people who are further down the path from you. That's where you should be seeking your motivation.
And that's how you improve, not the people that are behind. And the people that are judging you in the family, while they think they have good intentions, it's from their own fear, their own inadequacies, and their own desire not to lose you. Because if you level up, you might leave. You might move. If you go to college, you're the first one to go to college. You might never come back.
Yeah. Wow. I think I've heard that a few times, right?
Yeah.
So going through your notes when we were preparing for this, because we've done a lot of legwork to bring this series to the listeners. So we're excited about it. Motivation comes from action is one of the things that I read. And I love seeing somebody else build notes with mine because it is such an experience for me. Elaborate on this for me and what that means when you take it to your coachees.
You are not in a great frame of mind. Your energy is not good if you are sitting on the couch for 3 hours. In fact, as someone who just had a long flight back home, after sitting in the airline seat for a couple hours, getting up is uncomfortable. We are designed to move. It gets our blood pumping. It puts us in a better energetic state, and it allows us to think. We now, in all of the retreats that I put on, we build in hiking. No matter what the retreat is, hiking is a component because we've found people will open up. You get into a more of a flow state when you're moving. It is hard to get into a flow state, even a creative, if they're sitting still. Mm. And so it is regular exercise is a key component. You cannot live a fulfilled and well-rounded life if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not exercising. And quite honestly, I've had people over the years, they will go, oh, I don't have energy for that. I'm like, you don't lose energy by exercising. Again, maybe for a few minutes after, if you hit it really hard, but it is energizing in the long run. And going to be honest today. So I just got back in a couple of days ago. Last night was my monthly poker game. I was up later than usual. I did not want to go to the gym. I did my coffee first. And then I was like, oh, we've got the recording. And I'm like, I don't want to be sitting all day and then come do this. So I went to the gym and knocked out 45-minute workout. I wasn't tired afterwards. I was energized. And, then I'm like, all right, I can't wait to do this. And I think people misunderstand how important it is to keep moving and to be moving on a regular basis, getting your steps in, getting your exercise in. You show up as a better version of you.
Yeah, it's funny to me, as in ironic, that people believe it's a time suck and it's actually improving your efficiency. And there's, I'm sure, a ton of medical background that neither one of us is going to be able to speak to, but it makes you more efficient the way your brain works and just your ability to stay awake and think. We're huge exercisers here, and we have all kinds of challenges that we add, not because we are some kind of physical coach, but because we believe that it makes you show up better, both professionally and personally. What's interesting to me, beyond the fact that we share the commonality in the thought of exercising is being important, is that the motivation comes from action. When we're talking about people wanting to have success at an additional level, they think, oh my gosh, it's going to take the same amount of effort to build a second time what I got the first time. And I was just having this conversation with a large group of women that I partner with. It's really not. You have to have this body of work But when you have a supplemental body of work, one feeds into the other. And it's the same with exercise. If I have exercise, I will do the rest of my work more efficiently and better. If I have a current level of success, I can have my second level of success more efficiently and better. It's like a good bubble wand that's got all kinds of bubbles blowing out on top of it when we were little kids.
But when you're going to build that second business, you knew these three things didn't work the first business. This set of things over here worked amazing. So instead of learning and trudging through all of that, you take what works, you evaluate what didn't work, see if any of it applies to the new business. You're going to be more efficient and quicker getting up to speed.
Yeah.
And I would argue you're well served to add a lot more energy to it initially just to overcome inertia. But I think then you are using your knowledge and intelligence and wisdom that you've learned from your other businesses to fine tune and propel this one.
I used to tell my swimmers when I was coaching varsity swim and dive, you fall to your highest level of preparedness. So if we go out and we give ourselves the opportunity to practice, go to the gym every day, practice our business every day, practice with our kids and being a parent, being a spouse, whatever that looks like in your role for you every day, then when the rubber meets the road and things aren't going so well, then when you dip down and maybe you falter, then how low can you fall? Like if you've practiced up here at this really high level, the higher you raise the bar, when you fall, maybe it won't be so low.
You catch yourself sooner.
Yeah.
And I would take the B+ level swimmer with the amazing work ethic over the freakishly talented A+ with a poor work ethic every day of the week. And I'm sure you've seen that play out time and time again. If you have extreme talent and a lazy work ethic, it's really a waste.
Yeah, think about who you'd hire. If you were the employer and that was on somebody's resume, which one would you take?
I did hiring for a while, and I hired a truck driver once for a shop manager position. And I'm going to name I'm going to repeat a couple of quotes. I thought you were an idiot for hiring him.
Uh-oh.
Same thing. And I had the same comment on hiring a field guy but they got it. And when you interviewed him, you realize you had somebody who they happened to be doing this right now. And they were doing it because it worked for them and they were looking to transition. And when you interviewed them, you're like, I want people like this on my team. It's the whole bus thing, get the right people on the bus. And the two hires that I was most criticized for at the time were the two of the more successful ones. The field employee who everyone thought I was an idiot for hiring became a foreman in 9 months. He lost 50 pounds. He was able to manage high school kids managing a music store. And he was a woodworker and he truly loved creating. And when I interviewed him, I'm like, yeah, I offered him a job on the spot and he got in shape with working physically. He lost weight. He was good with people and he got promoted. He was one of the quickest ever to go from not working in construction to a foreman that we ever had.
Yeah. High energy, willing to commit, and had the ability to follow through.
Yes.
So for people who can't kind of are struggling with this concept of the importance of it, I think the most important things that we can identify in ourselves or in another person in an interaction would be, what does your energy level feel like? If you're struggling with it, how do you change it? And in another person, what are they willing to put forth in their energy? Or how do they change it? How are they willing to take a look inside and identify their energy level? And then once you get into the interaction between two people, that's a different topic.
Yeah. And if you think you can't feel someone's energy, once you have that connection, I can think of 2 times with my girlfriend. When she was coming over, I had changed the plans I had laid out. And I couldn't say why. If you said, well, why did you change what this very fun routine you guys have? I just felt it wasn't what was needed that night. And when she showed up, both of these times, she was feeling off. Disconnected with herself was the phrase she used. And I would argue that both times she was a mile away from my house when I went from here's tonight's plans to, you know what? I think we're going to change plans and do this instead. I, without knowing it, knew she wasn't right. And again, in my 20s, I would have been like, you're crazy. But when you are partnered up with somebody like that, you feel these things. You feel their energy, even when they're not there. You can look at them and know when they're off, even if they're faking it.
Yeah. So that's a really good segue to the next piece. I think the masculine feminine energy, which is a hot topic right now, no matter pretty much hot topic good, hot topic bad. There's a lot of misconceptions about it, but you and I have talked about this quite often. There's a lot of personal connection to masculine feminine. There's a lot of professional masculine feminine connection as well. And I think if you just your ears just went, oh God, they're going to go there, bear with us here for 1 second. We're not going to get weird on you. For my body of work, it's on our YouTube channel. For Dennis's body of work, it's also there. His beautiful girlfriend, Melanie, is on those videos as well. So if you think that Dennis doesn't know what he's talking about, maybe Melanie does. But this is a really interesting topic when it comes to energy, because here's the reality. Whether you take energy work aside or not, our workforce is full of men and women. Men and women can both be masculine and feminine in the energy space. So it's everywhere, whether this is something that you want to invest in or not. The reality is we work in a co-ed work environment.
Yep.
We also have co-ed personal lives. So this piece about energy is not necessarily something you can turn a blind eye to. You also have an opportunity to embrace it, especially if success at an exponential level is something that you desire. So what do you think, if somebody's just breaking into this topic, what is something that you think you need to know in this moment about masculine, feminine, if you had to give like one piece of advice, Dennis?
While you may be a masculine man, you still have a feminine essence. It's just the minority, and vice versa. And I will never say that a less masculine man is wrong if he's being true to his nature. And it's something I think sadly, masculinity is often, okay, suck it up. And this is, there's this old school mindset. And quite honestly, sometimes the most masculine thing you can do is be loving and kind and be open-hearted and empathetic to your loved ones.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably one of the snips we should put out on this series. Way to go, Dennis. Way to knock it out of the park. Yeah, I think in this study that we have done at Oxygen in my own personal work, the idea of polarity in the masculine, feminine work. And that's a hard lesson. I love how you have mentioned multiple times, my younger self probably would have been well darn deserved to know this, but I was too dang stubborn to know or acknowledge that this was a thing. Potentially could have saved a shit ton of heartache, made me a lot more money, shortened some learning curve. It's all in the process. And when the other person, whomever it be, is in one mode, I am best served to be in the other. Whether that's with someone I am coaching, with my boyfriend, with my children. By the way, I have a daughter and a son. Doing this with you now, polarity is how that kind of dance works. somebody's going to be in their masculine and somebody's going to be in their feminine. And until you can embrace that process, I think it's more of an uphill battle, or it's a longer battle.
There's headbutting. Two people can't lead a tango. But when one person leads and the other follows, it's beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
And I think you nailed it with the polarity. You have to, depending on the situation, sometimes it's the other person's taking the lead. You need to respond. We don't react. But again, younger me, I look back and I, and being a former New Yorker didn't help,
Ouch.
But
Shots
the reality.
fired. Jeez, Dennis.
Well, no, I grew up in the city, Staten Island, New York, and for a quote unquote New Yorker who was then in the Army, I was one of those nice guys in my first marriage, and I was afraid of conflict. But again, because I didn't approach it the right way, because I don't want to upset her, instead of embracing what I believed in at times, and sitting down and having that difficult conversation. I was more avoidant back then, where now Melanie will go, I got something I want to talk about. Let me know when you are in the right headspace. And that's code for, hey, it's a little deeper conversation. And I love it because there's times I'm like, yeah, a little bit later. And most of the time I'm like, let's go. Because I'm like, I'm comfortable with where we're at. And I don't get hung up on whose role is to lead the conversation or what have you. And I think we have to not listen to, I'll just say, the lies of society. Being feminine is a beautiful thing in a woman. It is not a sign of weakness. And you mentioned it earlier. It is a beautiful dance, the masculine and the feminine, when they're working in concert. It is beautiful. That's the way we are supposed to be, and one responds to the other. So.
Yeah, I think that when we work with some of our executive clients who are to a place where this is, like I mentioned, they've had their mistakes. They've figured out that, they got what they wanted to a certain extent in the past, but they're ready for a different way going forward. And what we're referring to today, it's a fear of what they could potentially have again if they're willing to try. We are okay with this polarity concept when it comes to selling a big ticket item. Right? The emotional state of a customer, if we remain intellectual, or we're okay with the polarity concept of employee versus employer. But when we take polarity and put a different context to it, then we get weird. We're actually not. We're actually very seasoned at this. So if we are willing to step outside of our box and kind of get a little bit uncomfortable and put that label on, are you willing to take the polarity concept and lay it on maybe understanding someone differently, or maybe getting something in an easier fashion? And I think that for high driver people who are listening to this series thinking, am I willing to put words on, I want the next bigger thing?
What's interesting, you mentioned the high driver people. Almost every man that I work with, they are incredibly successful in all aspects of their life until they walk through that front door. And they were never taught how to be a great husband. And they lose the polarity. They are leaders in every aspect. They walk through the door, and next thing you know, that it's like their world is bizarro world. And again, it's a skill to be learned. And it is not about controlling somebody. It's about appreciating the beauty of the feminine and sometimes the chaos, which is part of the beauty. The feminine, it flows, and the masculine's not the same. And, that's one of the things, once we can learn this and the dance of the masculine and the feminine, our lives improve exponentially. And every guy I've worked with, all of their relationships at home and at work improve. because they connect better with their people and they allow them to understand they actually care about them instead of being that standoffish boss. Now you recognize something's off with an employee and you're approachable. When you go to talk to them, hey, what's going on? They'll open up to you because they've seen the softer side.
Yeah, I think that there's not a lot of people out there on, the Google space, in the YouTube space. You and I can be one of the few, Dennis, that help people understand that going out and physically exerting your body so that you can feel somewhere in your space. Earlier today when we were talking, whether it's your back or your legs or just being exhausted or whatnot, being actually able to feel something. And then taking that feeling and being aware enough to understand, hey, I have something to contribute and it's to something bigger than me right now. It's not the hard work that got me here that was trips and falls and what I had to give up. It's what I can have, and I'm powerful enough to get it. Additionally, it's going to take maybe even a coach to help me find that.
Oh, it's funny. We just had the Super Bowl, so I'm going to use the football analogy. So I had this conversation with somebody about, coaching. Do you know how many coaches an NFL quarterback has?
Oh, I think the average number is 9.
Yeah. There's a fitness one. There's their basic health and everything else. And it's insane. Why? Because you can't be an expert in everything. And what you're doing is you're taking somebody else's wisdom and guidance who is not in that forest there that you're trying to get out of. And I describe, man, I'm the drone above the forest, helping you, letting you know to turn left or turn right. You've got to do the hike. You've got to do the work. But I can get you out quicker. I can get you to the next level faster and help you make an amazing life for yourself. But you're the one doing the work. I'm just the guide along the way.
Yeah.
And we all need. I still have a coach I work with.
Yeah.
I'm going through a new coaching program as well to improve my skill sets on things. This is not a destination. I'm done. I've got to a certain point. If you want to have a fulfilling life, this is a lifelong journey of working with somebody on something. It may be physical this time. It may be your emotional or energy, or a relationship thing, but there's always something we need to be working on and improving. Because if we're not growing, we're dying. And it sounds cliche, but it's true.
Right. We did an interview with Jillian Michaels a few years ago. She's on our channel. You can find it. And even she says, why would I not want to shorten the amount of time that it takes me to learn something? And by shortening it, I just mean teach me to not fail. Remove the obstacles of failure so that I can succeed faster. And when she said it to me, I was like, oh my gosh, why does that make so much sense? And obviously people who know Jillian Michaels, she is such an in your face type of person, which is not everybody's cup of tea. But when you talk about removing the obstacles of failure, and I think that for those of us who have seen success and failed over and over again, because that really is what success means, we've done that for ourselves. We can succeed because we know what those failures are. We don't give ourselves enough credit. Now it's time to learn the next stuff. And it really is. I think I've heard you say in the past, it's in conversations together, it's in that deep work, that emotional, energetic work that it's good. We just don't give ourselves an opportunity to get in there and swim there.
It's the best part of being a coach is it requires you to do that work with others constantly. So you're also doing it for yourself, with yourself. The reason I have the relationship I have now with Melanie is because of all the mistakes of the past, because I didn't know better and I wanted to change something. And quite honestly, I'm not afraid of failure because it is a stepping stone on the path to success. Don't have fatal failures. And, I know there's a quote out there about failing forward and failing fast. As long as it's not a fatal mistake, I have guys at home, the relationship ended. It'd been 2 months, things are going great. I'm like, cool. Well, what red flags were there you ignored? And we start talking, and it's, where did you go wrong? And, learn from it, figure out, oh yeah, I didn't really like this. I was devastated when my wife asked for a divorce all those years ago. If you'd have asked me to rate my happiness, it would have been in the 5 to 6 range. One, because I was putting too much on her and not recognizing it was 100% my own responsibility. And now I create the life that I want. I've invited Melanie to join the adventure, and I'm the only one who's responsible for my happiness and the decisions. And when we did this on the video we made about polarity and leading, I factor her in. I'm not selfish, but I have to lead myself first. And I lead in a relationship, but I have that rule of what's best for Melanie. And I had somebody go, well, that's hypocritical. I said, no, it's not. I love this woman and she's my partner. And so I have to factor that in, even when I'm going to be gone to Florida for a week without her, because I'm going, do things I need to do.
What is one thing, let's get authentic here for the audience who maybe doesn't know you or doesn't know me. What is one thing that you think you have had a fear of success of?
So when I decided to become a full-time coach, it was something I was doing. I'd looked at for a long time, couldn't find the right training program. And I had a fear. I had these 3 core friendships that I would lose those friendships. And it's not necessarily bad. And one of them did die off. They are not a person who's in a growth mindset at all. And if you are on a growth trajectory and somebody else is not, it changes things. And one died off. One is close to the same, and one is just not quite the same depth and level of friendship it was. Still a good friend, but I've gained some friends that I could call up and ask them to help me move a body, and they'd be like, I'll be there in a couple of hours. It's always my running joke of, it's about how many people will help you move a body. And I have now a friend, Charlie, that is like brother I've never had. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I didn't want to lose those valuable friendships, but I was going to have to be stuck if I didn't make this change. And I knew this is what I needed to do. And, one died off. I spoke with one of the other 2 today, and I had lunch with the other one on Wednesday. So I've got a half a dozen more people in my minivan, of close friends that I could talk to about anything. So I'm blessed.
That's awesome.
But that was my biggest fear. And, I did lose a friend, but my life is pretty amazing right now because I'm very intentional with it. And I've gained a friend, like I said, it is like the brother I've never had. Is honestly probably one of the deepest friendships I've ever had. So I'm on the plus side.
Got to let go of this. You got to let go of the dock so you can see the other shore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the life I have, but I'm very fortunate. I realize I've got to be intentional, and I'm blessed that I can do my work remotely as well. So that helps because I like to travel a little.
just a little bit, A
little bit.
Yeah. I think that having a fear of success is definitely a reflection of, what you worked for right? I think that when we get to a place, so we've recently gone through a significant acquisition where we have acquired another company, and it's hard. It's one thing to go get to a level of success. You know, I work pretty hard to keep my dad's voice alive in my ear and working up to what I think he would consider success, but to keep my eyes open to what is also out there. You know, I know I'm doing work that he would be proud of, to potentially jeopardize that, you know, to take a risk and potentially jeopardize that. And that's one of the things I think is hard for entrepreneurs, is the head trash that we have too. You know, who do you surround yourself with? Again, this is kind of back to the, who do you take judgment from? People who are further down the road from you are never going to cast judgment, but it's our own head trash. And what we are doing to keep, we're going to keep on this topic today, but that's what we're talking about. Keep your energy high and make sure that you are not down on your own self. It is a hard enough game for those of us who are exhausted and fueling ourselves well and things like that. So for a level of success that I want, again, because I'm never going to be stagnant, it's hard to continue to chase success knowing what I have given up a lot. Like other people, I've given up a marriage, I've given up other relationships, I've given up time with my children, I struggled to get the business that I have. We're at a level of success now where do I go again? And what does that look like?
Well, what's riskier for you, Kat? Playing it safe or taking the risk, even if it doesn't end up the way you would prefer, is less successful, but you're going to learn and grow from it. You're still going to have something you're creating. And it doesn't mean somebody else might not be able to come in and then take it to the level, that level you were hoping from the get-go. I think being safe is probably, I can't see you playing it safe.
Yeah, I do very few things that are safe. Interestingly enough, so we'll stay on this because this is a little off what we were going to talk about. That is the receiving version of me in my feminine. So because we are at a level of success here at my company, and my kids are grown, and you know, I've done this work now, being able to take an opportunity like going through an acquisition was a very receiving moment for me. To be fair, one of my children brought me this opportunity and we took it. It's not a survival piece for me anymore. This isn't something we have to do to be able to put food on the table anymore. And that awareness for those of people that are out there listening to this conversation today thinking, well, I don't have to do this. You're right. But for a lot of people, business is your playground now. It was your survival to feed your family, get out of corporate America, whatever it was your survival mechanism. Now I hear people tell me all the time, well, I do business for fun. Or my favorite, I go to work because work is what I enjoy, or it's easier to go to work, which I'm sure, Dennis, you hear as well. There's a whole slew of things that come out of that, but you may do what you do for a living for fun. This opportunity was me in a receiving mode saying, okay, you know what? I actually get to enjoy this, but that comes with risk. So where is the balance for me in taking care of others, providing employment for others, getting to do this really cool thing? By the way, I got to go back to my engineering background in this. This was kind of a selfish self-care thing, which was kind of cool. But this was a little bit more me. And that's very different. I'm the one that's, bam, taking care of business, right? Doing for others. And this is a different level of success that comes with fear.
I love it. I don't consider what I do work. I went from in my 20s, 30s, and probably early 40s. I'll retire at this age, retirement, Social Security, blah, blah, blah. I will be 58 in 2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks from yesterday, I guess. I actually have projects and plans right now out through for 15 years. and the getting up and talking to men and helping people is not work to me. Writing a blog post, a little bit of work. Writing follow-up emails, that's a little bit of work. But the actual talking to men and helping them and everything else I do, making videos, that's fun. That's not, it's not work for me. And that's why part of me is shocked. I'm like, I don't look at retirement as I'm going to stop doing it. I might slow down at 73. For my 60th, 2 years from March, we'll do it in April to celebrate. Charlie and I are going to do the Camino. And I had somebody go, well, you should do it now. They're like, why? Because they were looking, but you'll be 60 then. You want to do it now. And I'm like, you're missing the point. 60 isn't old if you take care of yourself, if you're exercising and moving and have good health. I'm like, you don't get it. I'm doing that to celebrate being 60. You got my final 25 years is how I'm looking at it at that point. And it's mindset, a lot of this.
Your mirror is your biggest competition.
It really is. And, I mentioned this to you at one point. I do CrossFit. I started CrossFit in my 50s. And there was a guy at the gym, this 28-year-old guy. He was a beast. You're like, I'm not jumping on a box. This guy could do a double box jump. It was insane. My shins just hurt looking at it. And when I showed up, especially that first couple of weeks, I was a little bit like, oh boy. And I'm a 2-time Ironman, and I was intimidated. And then I finally had the light bulb come on. The guy who you look at in the morning in the mirror is, before I go to CrossFit, did I leave it all out there? Am I better than that guy yesterday? That's the only thing I need to work towards. And I've really taken that in all aspects of my life.
Yeah.
And I've had failure, and I don't allow myself to talk down to myself. I got to be honest about why I failed and what do I need to do to overcome that failure. And but it's the guy in the mirror that gets to judge me, and I'm happy with the guy that's looking back at me right now in life.
Yeah. Well, we're happy you're here. All right. So let's do a challenge for those that are listening in, and then we'll give them some contact information, and we will see everybody at the next session. So call to action. How about something to do with energy and how people can check in with their own energy? What do you think?
Yes, I think I want you all to take for the next week, periodically throughout the day. I want you to be systematic and stop and grade, evaluate how you feel energetically. And, whether it's up, down, and it doesn't have to be, and we're not just talking physical energy, we're talking emotional and the whole 9 yards, and see if you can pinpoint what's causing it. I also want to challenge you, some push-ups, air squats. If you're feeling a little down or you're feeling a little sluggish energy-wise, do something physical. I will not ask you to do burpees because I'm not evil.
Come on, you're talking to the burpees coach. Come on, Dennis. I was ready for burpees.
I hate burpees.
Hey, listen, my deal. If you're not ready to put the work in for the classroom, then you got to put the physical work in. So your air squats sound like nothing compared to my burpees, man.
Push-ups and air squats, I said. But it's get the blood pumping and then get out of your head. By getting into your body a little bit, you're going to, and then I want you to evaluate, okay, how am I feeling energetically now? Because if you figure out in a week that, I was a little down here and I was feeling a little off, and you can either identify why, or you realize I have the ability to change my physical state, my emotional state, my energetic state with activity, you've unlocked a superpower. And if you're honest with yourself, you might also pick up my 3 lowest energy states involve dealing with this one person. You might have an Eeyore in your life you need to either minimize or remove.
We love that. We would totally support all of that. If you're looking for any additions from me, we would suggest that you actually write this down. You will not remember these things. We have a tendency to make things right in our life, whether they're right or wrong. So if you're a person that wants to write it down in your cell phone, keep track there, but actually write it down till you catch our next YouTube video. If you're using a battle book through Oxygen, do it in your behavior portion of your battle book, but write it down because you want to make sure you can look back and say, hey, you know what, that Dennis guy, he actually kind of knew what he was talking about. And really be honest with yourself. You don't have to share it with us, but that way you don't try to make it right in your head. And you can really see that. Okay, I love that. All right, so a couple housekeepings. Dennis and I are going to come live on YouTube on April 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you like this, you can follow up the videos and watch the remaining 3 sessions, but then set your calendar for April 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and you can jump on. You can ask us questions. You can also follow Dennis and I on YouTube, so you get all of the videos, or reach out to one of us. Dennis, your YouTube channel and email address for contact?
So it's Man of Legacy on YouTube, and my email is denniscollins@manoflegacy.org.
Okay, we'll make sure all that's in the details for the video, but if you're audio or if you're auditory, then you can grab it there, and you can grab Oxygen at Oxygen Coaching on YouTube and info@oxygencoachinggroup.com. So we'll see you guys all next week. Thanks, Dennis.
All right. Thank you, Kat.